Welcome back. Do you want to see an Egyptian obelisk in person? It might be easier than you think. You may be able to see an Egyptian obelisk in your very own country. Now, if I'm speaking about an actual Egyptian obelisk from ancient Egypt, and not a latter reproduction, there are 31 known obelisks today. One of them is unfinished, still in its quarry. 11 are in Egypt, and the rest scattered to the wind, spread across the globe. But the question is, why do these structures reside where they do now? Is there some hidden use or meaning behind them? Welcome to the Occult and the Apocalypse with Kristen, aka Fire Tarot Mama, where I tell you how they took what was once widely known about God, spirituality, and you, and how they took that and locked it away. Come with me while I show you what I've learned from science, religion, cultural beliefs, and mythology to turn the occult and the apocalypse into just the hidden and the revealed. I've always been interested in these obelisks. Why? Why have the work of a distant culture that is unrelated to your own erected in some of the most important places around the world? They seem so out of place. There has to be a bigger reason behind it. Now, since I'm in the US, I want to talk about one of a pair of obelisks called Cleopatra's Needles. It's been erected in New York since 1881 in Central Park. Although it's called Cleopatra's Needle, it's in fact a lot older than Cleopatra's existence by like a millennia and a half. This obelisk and its twin were placed in London in 1878, and they're from my favorite Egyptian dynasty, the 18th dynasty. For you, all roads may lead to Rome, but for me, all or most of them lead directly to the dynasties that are directly intertwined with the Abrahamic religions. And the 18th dynasty is the most enmeshed of them all. Coincidentally, the majority of obelisks around the world come from this dynasty. The pharaoh attributed to the creation of these obelisks is Thutmose III. He lived from 1479 to 1425 BC and was the fifth pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. He is the great-great-grandfather of Crown Prince Thutmose, featured in my Moses episode, and Akhenaten, his brother, featured in my Egyptian monotheism episode. Thutmose III lived about 100 years before these pharaohs, and most of the obelisks are attributed to him or his co-regent / stepmother, Hatshepsut. After having stood for over 1,000 years in Egypt with very little weathering, and after only 100 years in New England weather, it's damaged the obelisk. In fact, Egypt's Zawi Hawass has demanded better conservation or to return the obelisk to Egypt. Now, about 300 years after Thutmose III inscribed these obelisks, Ramses II also inscribed on them. For the inscriptions attributed to Thutmose III, it says on one face, "The Lord of the vultures and Urias crowns, prolonged as to kingdom, even as the sun in the heaven, by Tum, Lord of begotten, son of his horns, who hath fashioned by thought, whom they created in the great temple of the perfections of their fresh, knowing what he is to perform. Kingdoms prolonged through ages, King of Upper and Lower Egypt, loving Tum, the great God, with his cycles of divinities, who giveth all life stay and sway like the sun forever." Now, the second translation attributed to Thutmose III on the New York obelisk is the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, Thutmose III, the golden Horus, content with victor who smiteth the rulers of nations, hundreds of thousands, inasmuch as Father Ra, earth ordered him victory against every land, gathered together the valor of the scimitar in the palms of his hands to broaden the bounds of Egypt. Son of the sun, Thutmose III, who giveth all life forever. Now, its twin sits on the Victoria Embankment in Westminster as of 1878. However, it was gifted by the leader of Egypt and Sudan, Muhammad Ali, in 1819. London declined to pay for the transport, and the move was privately funded sometime later. Now, another pair of obelisks that currently reside in the United Kingdom are on display at the British Museum in London. They were recovered by a Napoleonic expedition in 1798. However, they were taken by the British from the French in the Battle of the Nile, and they, as well as the Rosetta Stone, were given to Britain. And if the irony of that doesn't hit you, two countries that are not Egypt deciding what will happen to Egypt's precious things, I will genuinely never understand how this world works. But anyways, this pair of obelisks are presented at the Great Court of the British Museum. They're attributed to Nektambu II. Nektambu is considered the last native ruler of ancient Egypt. The obelisks are fragments and only have the pharaoh and his titles on there. Now, the United Kingdom has two additional obelisks in their care, one in Dorset and one in Durham. Now, the one in Dorset is traced to Pharaoh Ptolemy IX. And the inscription essentially detailed that the priests of the Temple of Isis had alerted the queens Cleopatra, the 2 and 3 who ruled together, that royal functions held there were very costly, and essentially asked for a reimbursement and for them to stop. The queens approved the request for financial compensation and alerted the royals to find somewhere else to attend. The one in Durham is attributed to an 18th dynasty pharaoh Amenhotep II. All of these obelisks are really fascinating. Some have minor inscriptions and others seem to have major displays of power. There are 9 in Italy, with an additional one within Vatican City. And of course, this is because Rome conquered and pillaged and destroyed everything in its path, including ancient Egypt. Now, interestingly enough, the obelisk in Vatican City is in St. Peter's Square. It's the only obelisk on public display that both the pharaoh and the dating are both unknown. We have obelisks from 1800 BC, around the time of Abraham and Isaac, and we know who that vassal ruler was and the general dating as to when it was created. But the one at the Vatican, blank red granite. No inscriptions. At some point, it stood in Alexandria, but it's believed to have originated in Heliopolis, the oldest city in Egypt, which is located in modern-day Cairo. Then Emperor Caligula, who was an incredibly deranged individual, had it brought to Rome in 40 AD. He placed it at the center of the Circus of Nero, and the Circus of Nero was mostly within the modern current-day walls of Vatican City. It was moved in the 16th century from the edge of the property to next to the old St. Peter's Basilica, about 853 feet away. The obelisk is 83 feet tall, and it's unclear if there were hieroglyphs on it at some point and they were removed, or if this particular obelisk just happens to be blank. According to the historian Pliny, we know its path, but not really much else. Very, very curious. So, could it be that all roads don't really lead to Rome, but in fact to Egypt instead? It's certainly the source of a lot of mysterious paths. Although it would be wrong to discount the many other civilizations that appeared and contributed to the human story, you have to ask, why do all these nations have a piece of ancient Egypt on their land? Could it be ancient Egypt's contribution to the advancement of humans, or is it a nod to their tremendous might? Because before Rome and Greece, there was Egypt. Or are they intended to be a reminder of some type? Perhaps one that speaks to the subconscious? I think to know where we're going, we have to know where we've been. To understand why they're all over the world now, maybe we should try to understand why they were created to begin with. Obelisk isn't even their original name. It came to English from Greek via Latin. The word in ancient Egyptian was tekhen. Now, this word has many meanings, most of them indicative of music or drum beats. That's an interesting word to describe a pillar with a pyramid on top. Now, Herodotus, the Greek historian, called them obelisks, meaning pointed pillar. Now, ancient obelisks come from a single piece of stone. They were placed in pairs in front of temples. It's historically known as a symbol of Ra, and during Akhenaten's reign, it was considered petrified ray of Aten, the sun disk. It also, with the pyramidion or capstone on top, was meant to represent the Benben mound. Now, the Benben mound was said to have been the mound that rose out of the primordial waters, where the creator Atum settled. Another myth involving the Benben instead had the god Tatenaten as a personification of the Benben mound. Tatenaten was considered the originator of all things good. It is pyramidal shape at the top, and Egyptologist Patricia Blackwell-Gary, alongside senior editor of astronomy Richard Talcott, believe that this shape may have something to do with zodiacal light and sun pillars, two astronomical phenomena that occur at sunrise and sunset. Zodiacal light is also known as false dawn if it occurs before sunlight. It's described as a faint glow of diffuse sunlight that is scattered by interplanetary dust. The glow extends from the sun's direction in a roughly triangular shape along what is called the zodiac. The zodiac is a belt-shaped region in the sky that extends 8 degrees north and south of the ecliptic, or the path the sun takes over the course of the year. The zodiac signs reside within it. It looks like a glowing triangle coming up from where the sun will soon be. Now, sun pillars, sometimes known as ice pillars, are a vertical beam of light which appears to extend above and below a light source. Light reflects from tiny ice crystals suspended in the atmosphere. The sun has long been a source of light for these pillars. And like I said, obelisks are often at the front of temples, but they also seem to commemorate military campaigns and power and might. It's kind of beautifully ironic, a seemingly magical natural phenomena of light captured in stone used in worship and commemoration of a show of force, named something that indicates music or something musical. Now, once Rome dominated Egypt, the obelisks were shipped all over the vast Roman Empire. And you would think that that would be the end of it, once the plundering Romans fell. But one empire gives way to another, and plundering becomes, well, plundering, only the names change. Rome gives way to Britain and France in the way of collecting and distributing other people's things. And today you can find one at the Vatican, 7 in Rome, 1 in Florence, 1 more in Urbino, and that's just Italy. You can also find them in Paris, Istanbul, Poznan, Poland, and Beirut, and more as well. The rest are where they should be, at home in Egypt. But if I believed in conspiracies, I would say that these obelisks, holding ground in so many places throughout the world, is a message about the global powers that be. But also as somebody deeply spiritual and realizing it probably originates from a breathtaking phenomena, I genuinely believe that the ancients, and likely the current world and religious leaders, intended them for more than just superstition or even commemoration. And that theory is backed only further by the fact that the end of ancient Egypt was not the end of obelisks. They've persisted in their creation into modern times. The Washington Monument is an obelisk. So why could we possibly still want to create them? We had a little fall, and I don't have an editor yet, so you get to see that. Or if you're listening, you don't. You should go watch. Lots have been suggested throughout history. Fringe theories include theories of energy amplification or even power generators. The originals are usually red granite or another quartz-rich stone. Quartz and quartz-rich stones, when subjected to mechanical stress, generate an electric charge. The mechanical stress could be pressure or vibration. It's what makes using quartz so valuable and reliable in timekeeping. This is called piezoelectricity. And interestingly enough, all materials that display this property also have what is called reverse piezoelectricity effects. There is an internal mechanical strain when an electrical field is externally applied. This effect is used in the production of ultrasound waves, among other things. So under one circumstance, they can theoretically generate an electrical charge, and under another, it can make ultrasonic waves. Now, ultrasonic waves are used for cleaning, mixing, increasing chemical processes, detection, and distance measuring. So could these theories of power generation be true? I can't discount them, although they're not the most likely. However, I'll remind you that their Egyptian name is related to music and sound. Perhaps we, as humans, have been drawn to these materials and shapes because of their amazing properties, subconsciously using them to capture the essence of pillars of light and displays of power. They definitely have tremendous potential. But I'll leave that for you to think about. Join me next week while I talk about the secrets of Fatima and the miracle of the sun. Supposedly, we've seen and heard it all, but is it really true? In the meantime, Thank you for helping me turn the occult and the apocalypse into just the hidden and the revealed. I'll see you next week.